Hello and welcome to the Finstock Capital presentation on loans against VGTR. Today we shall be talking about who we are, what VGTR is, and how we can help support you by providing a loan against your video game tax relief. I'm Edo Salverson, a co-founder of the business, and I'm joined today by Oliver Jenkinson. Finstock Capital invests in the video game industry. You'll hopefully now be aware of the different means of financing your video game, split broadly between project finance and company investment. Finstock Capital does both forms of investment, but we're here today to discuss one form of project finance, loans against your video games tax relief. Now, Video Games Tax Relief, or VGTR, was launched by the government in 2014, and since then has paid over 327 million to British video games development companies. This has provided a huge boost to the industry and made the UK one of the leading countries for video games development. Claiming your VGTR is both easy and technical at the same time. You'll need to have an accountant who is experienced in preparing VGTR claims to ensure that you are spending the money on qualifying activities and to prepare the necessary forms. The claim is made in your CT 600 form, which is submitted to HMRC. But once you have that blueprint, it provides a simple form of finance for as long as you continue to develop games in the UK. The slide here shows that in 2018-19, 170 video games claimed VGTR, with 490 million of expenditure in the UK for completed games. There are a total of 345 games that claimed interim and final VGTR, with 103 million of relief paid. In the table, you'll see that the claims varied from up to £5,000 all the way to over 1 million. Now, we deal with a lot of games developers who are relatively new to the world of game finance. So we thought it'd be helpful to go through some of the most common questions we are asked by developers. Today, I will be asking questions to Oliver from the position of a games development company. So let's start with the easiest and most obvious question. How do I qualify for VGTR?
Thanks, Edo. The first step towards claiming your VGTR in the UK is obviously to decide to make a game. And once you've done that, you want to formally become a games development company and submit an application to the British Film Institute. They also cover video games. They will then issue you a certificate stating that you are the developer of that game.
Okay, so is it very easy to get a certificate?
Yes, it's fairly simple. You need to pass the various cultural tests that are set out by the BFI by getting at least 16 points out of an available 31. The 4 tests are set out below: cultural content, cultural contribution, cultural hubs, and cultural practitioners. So, for example, you can have a British character or a British city, and those things will gain you points.
Great, so once I have a certificate, what are the next steps?
Once you have that certificate in place, we recommend speaking with an accountant who has video games industry knowledge, and that will allow you to make sure that you structure your business and spend the money in a way that enables you to claim as much VGTR and potentially R&D tax credits as possible.
Okay, thank you. But just what does that mean in actual practice? Do you have any examples?
Well, let's give a couple of examples. Let's say you're building a VR game, and to do so, you'll not only be developing the game, but you'll also be doing research and development to create the software to play the game. Now, it's important to note that you can also claim tax credits for R&D, but you cannot claim both for the same work. So you can't claim VGTR and R&D on the same money that's been spent. Therefore, it can complicate things to do both pieces of work in a single company because there's no clear delineation of where R&D stops and VGTR begins. Therefore, one solution that people use is to have 2 companies under the same umbrella, one which only does R&D and claims that tax credit, and one which only does video games development and claims the VGTR. That way, it's easier for HMRC when they pick up the 2 claims to clearly see that there's no double dip occurring, and in theory, the claim will be quicker and easier for them to process. The second point to note is that most people would rather have a cash payment instead of a reduction in their tax bill. Developers are no different, but VGTR only takes the form of a cash payment where the company is a loss-making company. Therefore, many people set up SPVs for each individual game that they develop in order to ensure that they qualify for a cash payment. Again, this is something it's very important to discuss with your accountants and lawyers early on in the process so that you can set up the company correctly.
Great, so I know that my game now passes the cultural test. I have my VFI certificate. I've categorised my expenditure, but how much can I get in tax credit?
So you can expect to receive 25% of core expenditure that is incurred in the EEA, up to a cap of 80% of total core expenditure. In layman's terms, that basically means that you can get 20% of whatever you spend in the UK developing your game.
Great, thanks. And when will I receive the VGTR payment?
You'll receive your VGTR payment once you've prepared your accounts, either for a full year or for a part year, more on that later. And you have to file your form CT600 with HMRC. In the CT600, you state the amount of VGTR and or R&D that's being claimed. Once HMRC has reviewed your accounts in the CT600, it will review the claim to make sure that it's qualifying. For example, that you are the developer listed on the BFI certificate and that the expenditure was incurred on qualifying activities. If HMRC has any questions, it sends a letter to your accountants raising an inquiry, and that needs to be responded to their satisfaction before HMRC approves the payment of VGTR or R&D. In terms of turnaround times at HMRC, assuming no inquiry, it can vary quite a lot, but at the moment HMRC pays in about 8 weeks. That can take longer at busy times, for example January when it's inundated with requests, or if there's an inquiry then you can expect an extra month or two for it to be paid, assuming you answer all their questions satisfactorily.
Okay, so is there any way for me to accelerate the receipt of an expected tax credit?
Yes, there are. There's two main ways. One is to shorten your financial year and file interim accounts claiming a smaller amount of VGTR for a shorter period. This tends to only make sense for larger budgets where the additional accountancy costs are mitigated by the benefits of receiving some VGTR on the game sooner. It goes without saying that you should speak to your advisors to understand all of the implications of shortening a financial year before you do it. The other means of accelerating receipt is to borrow against your VGTR claim, and that's where Finstock Capital comes in. We can lend up to 80% of the expected tax credit before you file your accounts. So once you've done all the maths and figured out what your qualifying expenditure would be, come to us and we can lend that money to you in advance of you filing your CT600.
Sure, so but what is the process to get a VGTR loan from Finstock Capital? Will it take up a lot of my time or a lot of my team's time?
Well, we like to think that the process is very simple and takes a minimum of management time because we appreciate that your time is better spent running the business and developing the game. We have a 10-point due diligence request list that enables us to evaluate the company and your claim. And then after that, we just liaise directly with your accountants to get an opinion from them on the qualifying expenditure and the claim.
And how long does it take to get a VGTR loan, and how long does it last? How long does the actual loan last?
All in all, the process from introduction to loan hitting your account takes between 1 and 2 weeks on average. The loan will be in place until HMRC pays the VGTR, at which point the loan and interest is paid down and we remit the remainder of the tax credit to your account on the same day.
How far in advance of my VGTR claim can I actually borrow though?
Well, we can lend against VGTR as soon as the qualifying expenditure has been incurred and an accountant can provide an opinion to confirm that. Normally, borrowers come to us 1 to 2 months before they file their CT600s, but in the event that a large amount of cost has been incurred prior to that, we'd be happy to lend in that circumstance as well.
Great. Now the key question for most listeners probably here, how much will it cost?
So our fees are usually 5% of the amount being borrowed, plus a monthly rate of 1.5%. That can either be paid monthly or rolled up to the end of the loan. Occasionally, we will ask for a contribution towards legal fees, but that's only if there's something very specific to the company that needs to be checked by the lawyers. In most cases, costs are captured by the 5% arrangement fee.
Okay, and the final question for me, what constraints will there be on how I run the business and develop the game?
We don't put any constraints on how you make the game, so long as you end up with qualifying expenditure at the end of it to claim a tax credit. There are some things that we ask you not to do as a borrower on the corporate side of things. For example, falling into debt with HMRC and having overdue payments. However, we make sure that our loan documentation is as standard as possible to enable us to put loans into place quickly and with a minimum of fuss for our borrowers. We're very happy to introduce you to other borrowers and game developers who we've worked with in the past, who will hopefully say that we're nice and easy to work with and that it's a simple way to generate cash flows for the business.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Oliver, and thank you very much to the listeners. Just as a reminder, that was Oliver Jenkinson, and I'm Edward Salverson from Finstock Capital. If you'd like to get in touch, our numbers and email addresses are listed, but it's been great to present, and we look forward to hearing from you.